For centuries, humans from all walks of life gathered around wooden tables and would graciously begin tapping their fist atop the fresh mahogany. Soon, those taps grew louder and louder, and millions around the world began to join in unison. It was at that moment where the story of pounding the table begins.
Drip on 100, yes, say less, that's me. Y'all on level 1, I'm level 3. Pounding on the table for my team. Every night I flex, I'm making big moves.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to episode 47 of Pounding the Table. Britney Spears is finally freed, and I'm not really sure what that means, but it certainly feels good to be back. We realize we have not been so consistent on our timing, so you guys got us in the booth on a Friday night recording, so we can get this to you guys on Saturday. And Tony, you always say like GM, right? I'm going to be dubbing this a new one called GE. Do you get it?
NGMI is all I see of you.
If you knowed, you knowed. We have some pretty exciting news. We were selected as one of the top 10 podcasts to be a part of the inaugural Twitter Spaces Spark program, which I'm super pumped about. Feels kind of like we're the freshmen 2021 and like the double XL rappers. So this is something, Tony, I had no idea that I signed up for, but pretty sure this is a big deal. We're going to learn a lot more next week, so we'll keep the Pounders in the loop to see if we're heading to Hollywood or what exactly this means. But until then, we are still the pod of the people. And so to kick things off, as always, let's get into the news of last week, brought to you by StockTwits.
Avi, I'm happy to be back in the booth, man. Let's start it off with, my favorite company, I guess, of all time is probably Tesla. Elon out here selling supposedly 10% of his holdings here. And I think it was this big brain move really to kind of go against the whole, they want to tax unrealized gain situations. Well, Elon is like, if you want to tax my unrealized gains, I'll sell my equity and then I'll bring the stock market down. And I think that's really the 4D chess move of it. Also, he filed a form on September 14th to start selling it, which kicked in on Monday. So he could have canceled the form had the poll on Twitter gone to no, but he kind of got people to agree with him that he should sell his shares, and he got to sell at the top and everyone's okay with it, right? So I think that people are way more against the man than any man doing anything.
So it went from I'm looking here now, went from 12.30 to down to the bottom of like 10.23. It looks like. I
mean, I think he sold like $5 billion worth of shares, I guess last week, or I think maybe a little more. Like last I checked, I think that was like Thursday night, but that's like 0.5% of Tesla. So that is a huge decrease for that small amount of sales, right? So I'm surprised they didn't like just find someone to take a block order, but like who's going to take Elon's net worth and block orders? So I could totally see why, maybe it was also to make a point, in my opinion. Like, I don't think Elon cares about whether it's 320 or 305 billion. I think he wanted to make a point so that the rest of his money doesn't have to get taxed like this every year. But, I just think that's interesting. And of course, we got the metaverse, as everyone's talking about it right now. Like, it's the cool thing that all the kids are doing. But Roblox is supposedly one of these poster childs for the metaverse. So it was up huge after earnings, ran from 77 to 100. And honestly, one stock that I've wanted to talk about on this podcast more and more, we've talked about this like at IPO, and it's done incredibly well since, is Unity. And Unity was just like this metaverse play that wasn't as obvious as Facebook literally calling itself Meta being a metaverse play. But obviously Unity has this huge game development network that they could easily integrate into everything that's going on into everyone else's metaverse. And I think it's already kind of happening. So that's definitely one name to keep on watch just as this metaverse trend continues.
You think Skills just drops that they're like popping in the metaverse and we'll get like 10%?
No clue.
I'm out of Skills for now, at least.
Yeah. I think any company that has the word crypto, blockchain, metaverse, like obviously like those are not worth, it's not just like if they have it, they're good investments. It's just that people will probably be trading those volatility for a little while.
Do you feel like this is like almost like the .com boom again to that capacity, right? Like where you're saying like, hey, our company's called Ethereum. Now it's worth $1 billion with no company underneath it.
No, yeah, right. But it's like, I think it's just asset reallocation and asset inflation. Like people are not spending their money on crap to buy, really. They're buying assets. Like a lot of people are just buying any type of assets. We have a whole generation of investors who are literally trading pictures, tokens, things that are words, but are also coin. It's people are just trading whatever they can get their hands on, like Pokemon cards. Like it doesn't really matter. And so I think it's like here to stay. I think that there's companies that are well positioned for a new market that hasn't really started yet. And I think that's what we're seeing. Like we're not seeing like it's a bubble. I think that people, if you're this isn't even started. Like look at the number of wallets, look at the number of people involved. This is like early days. It's only a bubble because you're actually listening to us, which means you're in a good sphere of people who know what the hell's going on in this world. So I think that's kind of how that works. Like there are people on Twitter who get it and they talk to each other and they know what's going on. That's why Twitter is so sick. But if you go out into the real world, like not everyone is on Twitter, not everyone's like getting this information flow constantly. So you're seeing it before everyone else altogether sees it. So we're early. And this is by no means like, are there a bunch of scam projects pumping and that are all going to be rugs? Like yes. A ton. Absolutely. Is this like where, like in 20 years, we'll look back and be like, oh, wow, like, holy shit, that crypto punk is worth 15 million floor. That's the situation. Like the quality and the big things that are going to come out of this era, because this is like, in a sense, like the 99, like 2000 kind of like everything's coming out. But it's different because these companies already have underlying, like Unity, Roblox, like Facebook. It's not a shell company. They already crush it. It's just another market for them to just triple, quadruple their revenues in.
What were you saying about the band, right? There's like 4 apes that just joined a band now or something like that.
Dude, okay. So, I mean, this is the craziest thing ever. Like, first of all, GG FinTwit. And second, like if you put 4 apes together, right? Basically, Bored Ape is one of the like biggest NFT collections out there. Like they put them together in this band, and like some famous guy on Twitter, like Jimmy.eth, he put like 4 of these apes together with Timbaland, and they made a band under UMG. And basically, it's this like virtual NFT, like it's like a platform now, basically. And so people are using these NFTs to create their own brands in the real world because you own the IP of that. So it's very cool. And I think that you're going to see that too. It's like the same thing as we talk about like gamers, they buy skins and they buy like different equipment and armor and whatever. Like people are like your kids do that on your
Bieber's
Roblox.
Doing
like,
concerts. Like I just saw something on TV. They were talking about Bieber doing a show.
And I think it's cool because like if you think like Unity, a bunch of games, like people buy stuff in games, metaverse, more things to buy. Roblox, your kids already spend your credit. Like if you're listening to this and you know Roblox and you have it on your phone or iPad because your
swiping your credit card.
Your kids are buying NFTs. Your kids are already buying it. So it's like this whole thing of like the metaverse is like it's definitely going to continue. And I think that these stocks are just like perfectly positioned to benefit from people being like, oh, I need exposure to the metaverse. Let me buy Facebook. Let me buy Roblox. Let me buy Matterport. Let me buy Unity. Right. And like I know a lot. This is why we're talking about this. So many people ask us questions about like what companies people are like really thinking are the next metaverse movers, and like clearly price action tells you which ones, and I think these trends can continue a lot longer than people think. Are the valuations stretched? Sure. Will they be in 5 years with the integration of the metaverse? Probably not.
Is this a genomic situation? You know, genomics was ripping earlier. Everyone got super excited about it. I don't think so. I think metaverse, you know,
no, we're here.
Not as many loops you have to jump through. Obviously,
we're already here. I think we're already here. Like, I think that everyone thinks that we're early, but I don't think we're that early anymore. I think that it's kind of like happening. Like we're seeing the mainstream of it. But so like companies like NVIDIA, right? Like NVIDIA makes GPUs. We love NVIDIA. We talk about it all the time. They make all the stuff that people use to mine Bitcoin and Ethereum and such. And so when you think about like the demand and use, and that's what really had NVIDIA going to the moon in 2017, then crypto died. And then NVIDIA did too. But you're seeing the resurgence of both. So that's why NVIDIA has been going insane as well. So like a lot of these companies are now like connected to this new market, which is like a subsequent 1999 to 2000, which is why we've been focusing on it a lot. And that's why a lot of this episode is. I'll just run through the rest of the tickers too, because I'm just getting lost in the sauce before we
we'll get there. We're getting there. We're still a stock podcast for the first 10 minutes or so here today.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I mean, but like to the point, like SMH was on here. Love the ticker. You said Avi. It's an Avi indicator.
Avi indicator, shaking in my head.
Right.
We didn't buy this. Like a semiconductors was so obvious.
SOX as well as another like semiconductors ETF. But they've been going crazy, like NVIDIA, AMD, all these, which is all related again to what were discussing. So that's why I mean, we've been discussing it. RIVN IPO this week, and once again, it gets priced at 70, opens well over it. And we know how the story goes. I think it's like the second most valued EV company out there right now, after Tesla, of course. Do I think it deserves a valuation? No, I think Lucid deserves to be worth more than Rivian. IPOF, like a company, Chamath, he's kind of out of style. People don't really love the man, but this thing's been getting some action. So it's been obviously on StockTwit's trending tickers here.
Discord rumors going around with that one, but who knows?
Dude, yeah. So what is Discord even worth now? Like, I think that Discord's probably worth upwards of 25 billion now. Like, it was 4 to 10, 15. And then I think that with everyone using Discord for anything blockchain and crypto, like, do they need, I don't even, huge. Honestly, I'm starting to think that unless like they're getting like a hell of a deal, it's not going to happen, because Discord could fare off much better by just doing a direct listing so we'll see. And TTD exploded. Like, that's a company Dom Rinaldi loved as well. And like, I was in that thing at like 170 pre-split, and wish I wasn't just trading around it all the time. But that thing exploded from 68 to 100 on their earnings. And, it's kind of a theme a little bit of this show as well. There's a lot of companies that did super well last year that people needed to wait for the dust to settle this year. And we've always talked about that, seeing like, how is it going to happen? The reports, the revenues, the estimates, once the reopening of the world comes back. And we're seeing that a lot of the companies who crushed it during COVID are continuing to crush it, which was very logical the whole time. Like, Etsy's at an all-time high. And there's, of course, some companies that get stuck, like Etsy got stuck for a while. Fiverr got stuck. But I think, we can just jump to here, Avi. Fiverr is ripping again. And why? It's because people assume the same thing that they did for Etsy like last quarter or 2 quarters ago. And we discussed that on the pod as well. Then they started doing acquisitions. So people were thinking that these companies were dead, except that they did really, really well, gained a bunch of users, increased their net revenue per user, increased all these metrics. And now they're just figuring out the next steps. And so Etsy did that through acquisitions, and then they've continued to pile in this cash flow. And now people are using Etsy, and it's at all-time highs. And then you see the same thing happening now with Fiverr. But the stocks get stuck for a while people are in limbo, because let's say you're like a couple $2 billion fund, you're not taking a massive position on something that you're just like probably guessing on. Like, people usually add based on results, in terms of like when you're that big money, like not the Elon big money, because then you just buy because it's Doge, but I'm talking like the institutional big money. And so you see like companies like DOCN, that's why DOCN exploded as well on their earnings, because they continued to do great. And so funds added it. And so it went up, because everything is just a market Ponzi. It's just how much money you put into something. And so people are now deciding to put money back into some of these companies. Like, you saw Etsy's now at an all-time high, and now Fiverr as well, because they had good revenue and they had good EPS. And I think that you're seeing that it's not just going to be this company that just continues to not be profitable. They're going in the right place. They have Fiverr Business that's doing well. And of course, with everything that's happening online right now, the amount of people that are getting jobs on Fiverr and Upwork is just, the gig economy is perfectly in tandem with the metaverse and everything we're talking about.
Yeah. Well, and they made those acquisitions, right, of Stoke Talent, Creative Live. And I actually just got an email today from Fiverr asking if you want to get on their insurance, right? So they're really becoming, you can see what they're doing. This is going to become a much bigger company than it actually is right now. I know the name Fiverr, like I was on this before, I was talking to you about this one. I was like, dude, I used to use this when I was like in college. Everything was $5. It's at the dollar store. Everything used to be $1, but no longer. But yeah, Fiverr obviously had incredible earnings though. Went from 160 to 190. Q3 21 revenue grew 42% year on year, driven by 33% year on year growth of active buyers, 20% year on year of spend per buyer. So they're actually going up and upselling and cross-selling. And of course, we got to talk about SE. SE had insane pre-earnings excitement here. They had their singles day where they sold actually 2 billion items versus last year where they sold 200 million. So that's pretty wild. Shopee sold 11 million items in the first 5 minutes. And the one thing that kind of was under the radar that I was excited about is they had 50 times the premium brand surge. So this, I think, is interesting, because the only bad thing I've really ever heard about SE is that they kind of sell these like tchotchke items. They're like, cheap little things that people will buy. But this is showing that they are moving into that premium space. And so I tweeted out earlier today, I was like, maybe they're going to definitely get into brand partnerships. I don't think that's super crazy of me to call out, but I think the fact that they may even get some acquisitions coming too. So this is a really exciting one. I don't know if they get too excited up front before their earnings, or you think this is a preview of what the earnings are going to look like next week.
I mean, what else can I say about
Put
SE?
you on the spot, man. Come on.
what else do you want me to say about SE? Biggest head of the table pound, steadiest grinder, least decliner out of like any of the growth names. I feel the same way as I felt day one, and in fact more. Like SE is just going to continue to dominate. They literally just, I'm pretty sure they just invested in FTX. Like, dude, they know what they're doing. I would invest in FTX if I were them. They're fine. They're gonna be fine. They're fine. I don't
gonna
like,
be run Forrest run.
I have no concerns. It's pretty much an ETF. Like I saw from Growth to Value posted this tweet. It's like SE is pretty much an ETF. It literally pretty much is an ETF just because everything it has in it. So
last one here. Of course, we gotta call you out here on Coin. And you said, don't call me out on Coin. I don't care about what happened with their earnings report. So
I don't even care.
For someone sitting down at their computer thinking like Coin went down, a lot of my friends, like I'll tell them about a few companies that are interesting. It goes down one day and they're like, what the heck, dude? It went down one day. I'm like, you gotta chill. You gotta chill. So is that the scenario here with Coin for you?
Bro, like I don't care about the revenue or the earnings at all. Like it's a very simple thesis, right? How many legit, like trusted and backed crypto companies are on the stock market? Do you know any other ones besides Coin?
Voyager, kind of.
Like what? Like
they're Canadian. No. Who knows?
Like, okay, exactly. Like if you can't immediately think of another thing to buy for crypto exposure on the market, that's it.
Coin's also really interesting too, because it's not just like dependent necessarily on the price of Bitcoin, Ethereum. Of course, they own a lot of that, but obviously the big amount of the money is coming from transactions. So even on the down swings, right, they're going to be making money off transactions of people selling. So, and they're going to be getting, if you go into their partnerships too, I was digging through their page the other day, dude, they're getting into real estate projects. Yeah, we'll have a whole podcast about Coin.
We need to do a full one. Like, dude, it's like people are like, oh, like, yeah, like they didn't hit what we were thinking. Like, I just simply don't care. You're thinking too much. Like, does the number go from the like bottom left corner to the top right? Okay, it is. That's where crypto is going. Where do you think Coin is going? Coin is perfectly able to capitalize on absolutely every single thing in crypto, every possible blockchain Web3 thing. Coin, NFT marketplace. They're literally, OpenSea just had so much shit against it because they locked someone's Bored Apes, that someone accepted like there was some stuff that happened. Basically, someone accepted an offer that was way below the price of it because it was a super rare one or whatever, and then they locked and froze the assets, right? And the whole point of it's supposed to be centralized or decentralized, but this was a very centralized thing to do. And so I think Coin has an opportunity to capitalize on OpenSea's mistakes, and seeing that, like knowing that OpenSea is already making just a gargantuan amount of money. You can already check how much they're making on Dune.xyz. I don't know what it is, but they're making an absolute ton, like in the hundreds of millions, and like will be billions in rev this year. And so looking at what Coin will do, and Coin has like the number of people on Coin are so many X the number of people on OpenSea. Like if you think that the transaction revenue from just buying and selling crypto is like what they're going to do forever, then you're thinking that Web3 and crypto does not expand. And so if you think that, then yeah, don't invest in Coin. Like you would probably hate Coin. But like if you think that crypto and blockchain and everything will just continue, and Coin is the biggest and trusted, every institutional player like Tesla, when they want to buy and sell Bitcoin, they use Coinbase. Like it's very much a GG. There's
a psychology there though, right? Like I always call it like the bar test. If you go anyone in a bar, I bet you like 80% of people would know Coinbase, whereas maybe 10% would know OpenSea, right? So it's one of those things. And it being a US based company too, there's this inherent trust. If God forbid shit hits the fan, like I can sue someone.
It's also publicly listed. It's also publicly listed and owned by so many big reputable people who have like vested interest in the game. Like I think that you could buy stuff like Riot or Mara or like MSTR or like all those, fine. You could buy the Grayscale trusts, like that's fine. But I'm saying like when you think in your head, what's like, if I want to invest without looking and without being like checking every day whether like my MSTR is up or down 600%, like that's MicroStrategy stock. Like this is the first thing people will think about. So like knowing that like you're one of the only things on the market, and that was the same thesis with Tesla. Like for me, like really back in the day, it's like they're the first, have the best technology, they're crushing it. No one else is really like available on the market, because like back then there wasn't a Lucid or a Rivian or whatever. There was Tesla. Okay, now there's just Coinbase.
Could you say like Coinbase is almost like an ETF for crypto in a sense? Because like
yes, exactly. Yes, I think of it exactly as that, Avi. It was in my head.
Like
you read my mind.
In crypto, dude. We're becoming one here, Tony.
Yeah, I love it.
All right, Tony. Well, guess what? You got your wish through divine intervention. I'm actually going to become crypto Av soon. I will announce my full-time job, but I'm actually going to be moving into the blockchain world. I've spent the last almost 10 years in Martech, and I guess through this podcast, I've started just to gain, and listening to you talk about it. It got me so excited that I'm actually going to be jumping in. I'll be starting here in a few weeks. I'll be hopefully up to par, or hopefully be better than you at this stuff at some point here. But
Yeah, soon.
You've been talking about these ENS domain names, and I'm a huge domain guy. I think I literally own probably 75. I've been buying these since like college. I get drunk and I'd be buying digital real estate. I think my best one I own is quitvapingtoday.com. I think that's going to be a big one over time. Everyone's addicted to these vape pens. And so I'll probably become a millionaire from that. But if you are interested, hit me up on the low. But we touched on Web3, little self-promotion I had to do. Tony, we touched on Web3 though a bit, right? We interviewed Opera last week. But for those of you who are new, let's just quickly touch on Web3. What is it? What are these ENS names that you keep talking about? How are they different from something I could buy on GoDaddy, for instance?
Right. Okay. And I think that you just kind of answered the question by your last sentence, like something I could buy on GoDaddy, right? Like you can go to a website that is a centralized website and buy a domain that is on the centralized web, that is all powered by Cloudflare or Fastly. Like everything is very much so centralized. Whereas here, instead of having to buy a domain from somebody, yes, we own it. Instead of it being just one company behind closed doors, pushing out things, it's all open source. So that's a very important part of it, because you can see really what's going on, right? It's trustless in that the network itself allows participants to interact publicly or privately without a trusted third party. And that is the biggest thing. And it's permissionless because both users and suppliers, anyone, can participate without authorization from a governing body. So it's pretty much just freedom, and that's sick. And who doesn't want freedom? So that's my whole thesis. Why does it matter? That, okay. And then we can move on now to what ENS is. Basically, they are just like your .coms that you buy from GoDaddy. So Avi, had you been buying those 75 domains on ENS services, you would have probably gotten airdropped over a couple $100K of stuff. And why it's not fake value? It's because the ENS, so Ethereum Name Services, is an open source, which is Web3 sick, blockchain-based naming protocol. And its job is to map human readable names like Avi.eth or Tony.eth, which is taken, unfortunately, to these Ethereum addresses or other cryptocurrency addresses, metadata. So basically, it is your online identity. And that's why it's so sick, because it's been around since I think before punks. It's been around for such a long time. And so I was only buying these earlier this year. I was early enough to get a bunch of tokens airdropped, but not early enough to get a ton of tokens. I wish a lot of
so how do they
so much
airdrop though, or why are they airdropping? So
right.
if I like you, Tony, would I just pay you ETH for what though? Is there a product behind it, or I guess I don't understand this at all.
Okay, well, yeah, right. So does .com matter to you? Is there a value to if you could here's my analogy. Instead of just renting it and getting it from something and on the centralized thing, you physically you own that. People who pay you money because it's not just a rental thing. You own that. And that is the identity through which all your Web3 stuff will be done. So people are paying so much money for clean names. I bet you, I saw someone Jason.eth was someone sold for 10 ETH yesterday. So it's just and then, it's just kind of crazy to think about that. But why is it? Because that is your online identity, and that's what everyone uses. So because we all use .com, .coms are important. Google.com is probably worth a lot, right? Okay, Google.eth is going to be worth a lot too. And I wish I snagged that, but someone else did years ago. And so there's stuff like that. It's just everything that's going on in Web 2 is now going on. So instead of GoDaddy owning, getting paid for all the stuff you get, we as a community, everyone who bought the .eths, they're the ones who own ENS. I get a governance token. So I literally get a vote in the company and how it works. Albeit not big, but there are people who as a community and that's why it's cool. Because instead of it being GoDaddy gets to decide everything that happens, ENS holders have a responsibility to uphold the network. And so that's how any company is formed, users and people active. And so there's no actual physical backed value to it besides what you paid for the domain, and like the gas you spent, maybe, if you want to consider that. But the point is that because you're able to have that piece of property, right? Like, and because people are assessing value to it, the tokens have value. And the only reason the company sent the tokens out is they were launching their platform token, which is basically like, because I was an early adopter and because many people were, the company gave shares to people in tokens. It's just like if you were using iPhones before Apple stock existed, and then Apple wanted to be nice and give you Apple shares, except stocks don't do that because traditional finance is bullshit. And so this is the sick new way that companies will be created, right? It'll be early adopters. Like, I think people who use MetaMask for OpenSea and other things will get MetaMask tokens. And so people will get incentivized and paid to use things. And that's like a very much so part of this new economy. And I think that that's why obviously people are thinking ENS is like a really big investment and like a great company, because it's got that stickiness to it. Bobby, like, let's say you and I want to send crypto to each other. Instead of you sending me crypto in like a super long wallet address with a bunch of letters and zeros and stuff,
I can just give you avi.mash or avimash.eth.
Yeah, I could just send you crypto to like avi.eth. And that's huge, because you use this, like, you pretty much use the same wallet. You could just go to different networks for anything that people do in crypto. And so that is, first of all, like a wallet that people can just send you anywhere. Like, you know, if I wanted to send you money, let's say like on Venmo or on your bank, God forbid, like how difficult it is.
It's like Bitly.
Send...
Right. You know, it's like, it makes the name much easier to actually send it to. It's like Venmo is screwed here unless they get involved with it.
This is just like, it's just like how to send money to anybody, like without, it's just the universal system, and that's the value, right? And it's not just for that. Like, you build literally decentralized websites with that domain, right? And so it's not just your wallet address, it's your identity, and it's a domain website that you can use. And you can actually tie like your ENS name to the DNS names you already have. So this is definitely the future, and I think it's sick. And I just wanted to talk about it on the pod.
Well, I think it clearly is, right? So you were pounding the table or pounding my DMs. You're like, Avi, we got to go buy these NYC coin. And I was like, what is this now? Like, there's cartoons, there's nodes, there's, ENSs, now CityCoins. Like, what are these CityCoins? Am I going to be able to get on the subway for free? Did the city benefit, or do we benefit, or everyone, or WAGMI? We all going to make it?
Yeah, it is a WAGMI situation. Like, I think that a lot of the traditional, like, by states and cities, the way that their finances and taxation and everything works is obviously like out of whack, especially because of COVID. But now we're seeing that people are adopting this early, and they're not just adopting it like you and I are doing it over the phone. Like, entire cities and soon entire countries will be fully adopting this, I think, in some capacity. Because, like, for example, city of Miami, I think that they're like the perfect example to talk about it. They're probably the furthest in terms of like revolutionizing this so far. They're going to be giving out a Bitcoin yield, and that comes from staking its cryptocurrency. So Miami holds crypto, and they're staking their Bitcoin, and then the rewards go out to the people who have Miami coin. So pretty much, as like a lot of these NFTs, they like buy a bunch of stuff and they pay out users. Miami coin is like an NFT for Miami. It's just like you're owning the token of like rewards made off of Miami's Bitcoin. Which, this is nuts that we're talking
digital
about
oil.
Like, how can anyone disagree? Like, I'm getting too many people on Twitter disagreeing all it. Like, it's madness. It's right in front of your face. And
they disagree because they don't get it. And I also disagree somewhat because I'm starting to get it a little more. And obviously, like Eric Adams.
It's a city. It's a city.
Yeah. I mean, New York, man, I got to pay attention. I'm about to get into this. Yeah, it's my city. Eric Adams is about to be our new mayor come January. He's very pro crypto, which is exciting, right? And so
that's amazing.
This will be, I know New York has some crazy laws, I don't know exactly what they are, but I know that I couldn't buy Shiba Inu, for instance.
Yeah.
I really, really wanted to buy some Shiba Inu because my doorman kept saying about it, and I was like, dude, I can't even buy this stuff. And he's like, well, I live in Jersey, man. You live in New York. And so it was a city situation. But it is really exciting, right? And if anyone knows Eric Adams, we would love to get him on the pod, or Suarez, if you know him down in Miami. I think it'd be a really interesting conversation. So
yeah,
it's crazy if you do.
It's pretty crazy, Avi, because Miami has already earned 21 million in the past 3 months staking their crypto. And so,
wow.
And Suarez said that, and this is the most mind-blowing part. And like you were saying this before the pod, and I don't want to get too like meta right now, but like we're going to. like this is where the year of 2030, like where like there's like utopian ubiquity, like hopefully comes into play. Like if we can go down two different paths right now as a society and as a species, and like hopefully it's this one, where Suarez was saying that if you were to analyze that net revenue, it would equal roughly 1/5 of Miami's total tax revenue of 400 million. So the city is going to be making the payments through digital wallet, and it'll work with a variety of different crypto exchanges to allow its residents to acquire a wallet, register, and get verified, which is pretty sick. So this is like mass adoption, whether you want it or not. And seeing cities realize the power of this and realize that they can put their citizens in a better situation by being citizens of that city is pretty sweet. And I think that like we need this like as a society. I think it's definitely what needs to happen, because even in the long run, and I don't know how much this is true or not, Swerves is saying that this could potentially eliminate the need for Miami residents to pay taxes. And so now obviously we're getting into the situation of like money is just funny money, which it is. And because like my turkey cost $60 and it cost 30 last year. So if money is all fake, why do we have to pay taxes? And why did like this is how this is to the book 2030 you're talking about.
This is 60, guys. This is 60. We're moving up a few levels
it's
now.
Nuts.
It is.
And New York's doing this too, right? Like in New York starting to do this, you can go and mine New York CityCoin and it's going to be doing the same thing. And so I wonder how long it is until like San Francisco, and I wonder maybe not, because like they don't like energy use, but the rest of the country does this.
Well, maybe my joke's real. Maybe I can just go pay my sub. I actually haven't been on the subway in years, but if I were to go on the subway, you could probably just throw a little NYC coin in there and be good to go. But I mean, it's a good 100%. Point, right? The dollar is dying. You saw inflation. I think it was like 6.2% or something. I almost ordered a $35 sandwich today in New York. I decided against it because I thought that was just absurd. But like, what's next? I mean, DeFi is pretty insane. Like decentralized reserve currencies. Again, everyone's like really freaking out about this inflation. I think you're lying that milk costs $9 or whatever you were saying, but
it's too much, dude.
It's nuts. But like the funny thing is, like everyone's like inflation, like we're freaking out. Ironically, though, you were saying that this is good for stocks if there's inflation, right? So why is that?
I mean, okay, it's good for certain stocks. You've seen clearly it's like a certain amount of stocks have been doing really well and a certain amount of stocks have not been doing as well. And I just think it's because a lot of people are not spending their money on a bunch of goods and crap. People are really spending a lot of their money on assets. So like you're seeing a lot of this like asset inflation, which is a good thing, but also be a bad thing. And I think that just the entire point of it is, though, that 6.1% inflation means that your entire net worth is shit. Like it just goes down like that. That's the logically how whatever dollars, and that sucks, right? Like we work hard for our dollars. All of us work really, really hard. And then it's just like diddled by the government. And so thinking about how do we fix this, right? Because like we're all, as society, we're getting pretty good at this, like solving problems on our own without the need for a bunch of like red tape and BS. Basically, here comes decentralized finance, and specifically, like you were saying, these decentralized reserve currencies. So, Avi, I want to just kind of explain to you why I think this is not an invest.
Off,
like
kid.
We're not like
Go off.
pounding the table on like I'm pounding the table on this as like a concept. Okay, do your own research as always, but I'm pounding because this is like not. We're going down the weeds right now, but it's going to be something you'll hear about for years, I'm sure. So it's called Olympus DAO. And I'm only saying this specific name because it is like the first iteration of this idea. And it's the way that essentially will solve this problem of consistently inflated currencies. So the way it is now, stablecoins are cryptocurrencies that are pegged or directly tied to a stable currency. So like you've got like USDC, which is the crypto for connecting to US dollar, or you have DAI, which is a connector. Even though that they're crypto, they're still hit by inflation, right? Because if they're pegged 1-to-1 to the US dollar goes like down 6.12% in value towards like real world spending, purchasing power, like that will go down as well. And so the whole point of Olympus is to try to achieve stability while maintaining this purchasing power, right? So like not letting inflation eat your goods and not letting the rats eat your money by using a floating market driven price. And so it's like, well, hey, what is the value of something? Instead of having the government print and decide what it is, why don't we all decide it together? Wait, maybe that'll actually work, because like if everyone all knows together exactly how much money is out there, exactly what's going on, we can accurately value it. Oh, wait, there's actually an algorithm that solves all the issues that are like just getting diddled by like Powell just hitting the burr button, this would be pretty cool. And so OHM token is managed using these, and Olympus DAO is the OHM token, is managed using these reserve assets in the same way that central banks do with the dollar reserves, right? Except OHM uses crypto reserve assets. So this is pretty much just like the Web3 DeFi version of central banks. And here's why the dollar deserves to be dead, honestly. Instead of in central banking where decisions are made by just a few representatives, OHM is a DAO. So any changes to the protocol are voted on by the community holders through the DAO. So like you were saying, what's the value of ENS? Well, I literally have equity, like ownership and voting power of ENS. Same with Olympus DAO. But instead of me getting money from Powell, like I am mini Powell, I'm just like 1.0001% Tony Powell. And so that's really cool because you can own your own liquidity of a DAO that owns its own liquidity versus having somebody just give you an arbitrary fixed set of value, which is the dollar. And so that's like mind blowing to think about. And I honestly think like this is kind of what Bitcoin should have been. Obviously, they're very different now these days and like things have happened. So they are where they are. But this is an ingenious way to think about like dollar value.
The biggest challenge is to democratize a lot of this to Joe
Right.
Schmo on the street. Like they're not going to, like, I know there is a
No,
subset of people
this is
that
right
know how
now.
to do this today, but are those people just going to kind of die off and fiat's going to die off with them? And then the new breed of people coming up?
I don't know where it's going, but it definitely seems like that's not off the table. I'd rather be prepared than be late. And so that's why I'm like making sure that we talk about things that are important, whether people want to hear it or not. But I'll explain this in like, you know how like Nat always says, explain it to me like I'm 5. This is like for me to understand this when
This guy's buying the Constitution right now, by the way.
Gosh, dude, you guys are gonna get rugged.
I'm in, dude. I'm like John Adams. I don't actually know if he was on it, but
back to Olympus, and I'll explain to you like how this works. Like if you think about a bank and the bank holds dollars, right? Like banks are supposed to hold like 10% reserve or whatever. They loan out the entire rest of it, right? And they're making money off that money. Okay, instead of the banks making money off that money, we are making money off that money. We are the bonds as a service. We are the liquidity providers. And it's all backed by an algorithm. So basically, Olympus has a growing treasury, and that is like the backing reserve assets that like the central bank uses the dollar for. And that treasury that Olympus DAO has backs all of the outstanding tokens of OHM. And that treasury, that DAO of OHM, is backed by actual things that are already somewhat pegged to the dollar, but also crypto. So it's backed by DAI, and it's backed by Ethereum, and it's backed by Sushi Swap token, which is like a big exchange for crypto. And it's also backed by other things that are supposed to be like some type of derivations of a stable coin, like FRAC and LSUD. And it's growing. So they're continuing to add a mixed basket of things in their treasury that are actually things that are assessed in real value, right? So like we can say whatever we want about Ethereum. It's worth what it's worth at the price it's worth, period. And so it's backing the assets of that DAO with those currencies, so those cryptocurrencies. And then because of that, that treasury is doing all the things that the central bank and the reserves do. And what's very cool is that the entire point of the protocol is to go do the opposite of what the dollar is doing. So the whole goal is to stabilize the value of it. So when OHM trades above the value of its backed assets, it mints more and it sells new. So it increases the money supply or the OHM supply, right? Like let's connect the two because they're the same. And then when it trades below the assets backed value of like what's in that treasury, because that treasury has an actual value. Like if everything went to shit, it went to zero, it would still be worth what's in that treasury. And the same as a bank. Like if everything in the bank blew up, it'd be worth 10% of whatever the reserves it has, right? So that's kind of the same exact thing, except they don't have a way to burn and supply at the same time. Like the federal government does not, like we don't do it in the most effective ways. And it's definitely not by an algorithm. It's by however many clicks Powell wants to do.
How many DAOs can there, is everyone a winner? Are we WAGMI here? Is like, or each of these DAOs are going to become the new banks essentially? Because there's one federal government. Can there be 500,000 DAOs, or can there be, is there going to be 5 winners? What's this?
I think, like? So this is like a question I've had a lot, because if you're thinking about it as like, okay, we're moving banking online and we're moving it, instead of having to go to the main branch of a centralized organization, we're providing liquidity from each other. Right. So the ecosystem is being so interconnected that it's essentially the same people doing the same things, which is great. But there are a lot of people who know that this is like a new thing that just started. So the reason I'm only talking about Olympus, even though like if you node, I love Wonderland money, with Daniel Sesta, and I would love to bring him on the podcast. If anyone knows him, please bring him on the podcast. Like, shout him out for us. Like, I'd love to speak to that guy because I think he's the next SBF and he's the next Elon. So love to talk to him. But Olympus DAO is the first. And so this is the one that created the entire idea of what we're talking about right now. And so that has the most money in it, that has the most backing. It was actually mentioned and it gave notes to by Goldman and Morgan Stanley. So when you think about the fact that it's not just some Ponzi BS, like there is institutional interest in this asset, it's important to think about it when it's only a $3 billion market cap or 4 billion versus when it's a 400. Because some people on Twitter like to think that you can't get priced out of things, but things get priced out, especially like the concepts of stuff. Like you want to make sure you understand the concepts because there's going to be opportunities. A ton of these are BS. There's so many new rug DAOs, like really just rugging you, taking your money. But there are things that are like this who are setting the precedent for what stable coins will be in the future, because clearly 6.2% inflation is not going to make it. So with that algorithm, basically it just keeps the supply proper. If it goes up, it gives supply. If it goes down, it burns. And it's all backed by real assets. And what's cool too is that within it, they can expand the protocol. So they've done that recently with Olympus Pro. And Olympus Pro is this new industry standard platform to help protocols acquire their own liquidity. So protocols no longer need to pay out high incentives to rent liquidity, while also guaranteeing the performance of liquidity to do transactions. So big problem in the crypto world is liquidity, because everyone is borrowing from each other here and there. It's very important to own your own liquidity. Olympus is basically bonds as a service. They are the platform through which other people can get liquidity. And so if you're thinking about the crypto space growing in general, that's pretty cool. What's also like important to note is that a ton of people basically copied this, and now there's a bunch of them on different ecosystems. Like to your question of how many there will be, I think there will be many. I think it'll be like regional banks, but I think that we'll always know that like if you're first, you're crushing it. And I think that if you're the smartest, which I think Danielle Sesta is for Time Wonderland, then you'll also win. It's like the Tesla Lucid situation.
Perfect transition, because it's time for questions from the audience. We're going to continue this pounding the table unchained almost. It feels like we got your boy Lion at _young_adulting. He is asking, can you talk a little bit about the risk management for things such as time staking? How we should be thinking about time horizon for these types of things and knowing when you get out. Before you answer that though, what you started talking about time. What is this time?
Yeah.
And for those of you who are wondering what Tony's like profile is on Twitter, it has something to do with this 9-9. I have no idea what you're talking about though, to be honest.
It's the 9 and a top hat. So so what I was describing with Olympus DAO is just an idea, right? And they're the first ones to really make that mainstream and like get notoriety from these institutional people. But Wonderland Time, and it's like ticker symbol TIME, right? Time is a fork of OHM on the Avalanche network, so AVAX. So it's like another one of the coins, like one of the biggest coins is AVAX. It's like top 20. I think it's like ranked 17th or 8th or 16th. Very low fees on that thing, super fast processing. People love it to do transactions. So it's perfect for DeFi. And basically this guy, Danielle Sesta, completely just like upended the entire DeFi space. So Wonderland Time, like this is obviously very early. I think it's just it's super interesting to pay attention to it right now. Like, do I stake Wonderland Time, which is the 9 and the top hat on my thing? Yeah, I do. But it's because I fully believe in Danielle Sesta because he's built an entire ecosystem. So like you were saying, I think a lot of these will not survive, but he's built an incredible ecosystem on AVAX, which is super low fees and it's like really good and quick transactions, perfect for DeFi. And he's built an entire ecosystem to create it and do swapping and everything. So it's very cool. And I think that that'll be around for a while. But in terms of like the risk management, we are so early in this that I do not know, right? Like I like the math and I do like the person behind Wonderland Time, but do I really know if it's going to be higher? Like this is like a very new thing that's happening in the world. Even Olympus DAO is only around like in the last year, and that's like the first one of these things. So I think it's obviously like risk which you can afford. And that's pretty much the same thing with almost most of the things that are happening in crypto. This is by no means like tried and tested waters at all, but like the math looks nice. And so that's my whole perspective on it. It's like, if these things work out, they're going to be really great. If they don't, make sure you're not like holding a bag of too much money. Yeah, of course.
Sprinkle a little bit on top. All right, we got this next question. Let's go back to stocks. We'll play a little tennis here. We'll go from crypto to stocks. So Scott at Greet is Good 70 talk a little weed stocks here. MSOS, which is an ETF for US pot stocks. We talked about that a while ago. Those are popping. GTBIF jumped 16% after earnings. There's a lot of legislation movements on both sides of the aisle, right? This is something unique. It's been progressives for years and years, but now there's some Republicans even backing this. So everyone wants to get high. But this revenue growth from 2020 to 2023 is 40 to 60%. We mentioned that pot bill. So is this a sector that you have an opinion on, Tony? I know we were pounding the table on MSOS, so I'm assuming the answer is yes, but
yeah,
expand beyond the word yes here for us.
I mean, I think it's a very like binary thing. We've been waiting for years for legalization. It like cuts out an incredible amount of ropes that are making this so much less profitable for a lot of people. Like you can like we were talking to a company that was like private in the weed game, and you can only send things in certain ways and ship and package in certain like this and that, and you can only take cash.
There's like
and
DA credits for certain companies too,
right.
Which is going to be a big thing.
Exactly. It's like there's so many hoops to jump through, right? And like humans are naturally lazy, so if there's anything difficult in the way, they shy away. So I think that the sector will blossom when it becomes like easy, right? Like my personal view is like whatever, like let people do what they want. And I think that if you do that, you'll see a good like uptick in revenue for all these companies because they're allowed to like actually do business like any other company. They don't have to jump through all these hoops, right? So the easier it is to operate, the more money you can make because the more you can specialize.
I would jump in too and say, like, if there is a sector that you don't want to guess, this is it, right? MSOS is probably a good one. Other ETFs too, take a look at, but there are so many cannabis companies, in the US and Canada. This is 1,000% going to be a consolidation area. And so like, if you don't want to spend your time digging and picking through each of those, like let some fun do it for you. Right. And they'll be on top of this. They'll be walking through it. So like that sector, this is like the IHI for me, robotic surgeries, med tech, like this is a sector that's going to win. Same with like CrowdStrike. I was like, obviously that industry is going to boom. Weed is going to boom. So ETF for me is something that seems logical in this situation, right?
Right.
There's going to be so much consolidation here.
They have great holdings too. Like they own a lot of very good like profit revenue generating companies, and I think all
US
the ones that
too. That's a key,
right?
Why would you not give it to the US companies? Gregory Scott, OG Pounder here at Zen_options, coming in with the top question of the night. 11 likes. This is how we're doing it from now on. We're going to continue to take like 3 questions each week, and we'll do it based off of likes because I feel like that's the most logical. Most people want to know about those. He is asking, can you run through your favorite crypto/blockchain stocks/companies other than coin? And which ones do you think the best position to capitalize? So we talked about SI at 33. Now it's like 210 or something crazy. So that one's insane.
Yeah.
You mentioned
monster.
Mara, Riot, etc. So like, do you have any favorites, Tony, for what you like?
Yeah, I mean, I think SI is like, it just reminds me like the net in a weird way of crypto. It's just kind of like everywhere. It's like in every like nook and cranny. It's like boom, SI is there.
Facebook partnership too.
Right, like it is the winner. Like and we said this from the beginning. It is the BLFS picks and shovels. It's like steady, like wasn't a steady grinder. It was a freaking explosion. But like I think it'll continue to win. It's just hard to get an entry on it because it's so vertical right now. Like I think during a good pullback in crypto, that'll be something I'll be eyeing. I don't really like Mara or Riot, and I just think that it's so much easier for me to just buy coin, or SI. Like I don't think that there's that many crypto companies out right now. Like if FTX went public, I would buy FTX. But you could buy FTT token, even though that thing simply does not move. So I don't own it anymore. But I don't think that there's too many out there that I really like. I like Marqeta still. Like I think that Marqeta's got a long way to go, just because like it had earnings, which were great. But then people sold in front of the lockup, and then people rallied after the lockup, and then they sold it the day of the lockup. And then they had the Andrew left, like Citron piece. Like there's so many different things that were up and down happening to it that I think like as it settles out, you'll see them in the infrastructure for this too, right? Because we have to connect the metaverse to the real world. And I know this is why we're doing stocks still. And if you combine Marqeta's power with Coinbase cards, this will be throughout the system. Like you'll have random cards for random reasons. I don't even know what there will be yet. But Marketo will power it. So like, I think that that's another cool thing to consider because, I use FTX card and it just swaps out. If I want to go buy something, I just have it set to like swap out my Ethereum for whatever I'm buying, which is like, it sucks sometimes, but it's nice when Ethereum is ripping to go buy groceries. But yeah,
can you talk about that story real quick? Actually, you were telling me that your mentor and your running coach early on would like see Bitcoin run up, and then he would run to the grocery store, buy groceries, and take advantage of that yield real quick. That's
he's
amazing.
Like been buying Bitcoin for years, and like as it started going, to 10,000+, he's just started buying groceries for it, like on a rip, because like. You're gonna spend.
Where do you buy groceries with Bitcoin? Like, is that how you get it?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like my FTX card, I buy anything I want with Bitcoin or crypto or whatever. Like I can Venmo you in cash with crypto. It's nuts. And so with Marketo going to be doing that in Coinbase and everything, like I think that's another thing that we'll continue to watch. Like I just think it's just obviously early days, like right near IPO, they're worried about it Square being too big of a customer, but I would reckon that once Coinbase really like starts pushing that card out, we'll see a big shift in like that one user or one revenue generator for them.
As we wrap things up, this is kind of as we said, the almost pounding the table unchained, if you will, which I think is something we have to start to get into, right? We can no longer ignore this. We've been a stock podcast for over a year now, right? And we're going to start transitioning into a stock podcast. We'll stay a stock podcast. But we're also going to start to introduce more of this crypto, which I think is something that we cannot ignore any longer. So leave us, as always, Tony, with the Tony Talk section. Give the people what they want. Come on.
Avi, I've been face deep for 3 months trying to talk about this on the pod, but let's get it, man. I'm happy. I'm happy that we can start discussing this because I think that this is a situation where the world's changing so much that it's so cool to see it. It's very cool to understand it. And I think that you'll find opportunities for yourself, which are not just like buying crypto and making money. Like you will find a way to maybe start a business or maybe like a cool field that you didn't know that you could explore and do, but now there's a way for you to make money and have a career and a passion that way. And I think it's just very exciting. Like I think that too many people think that it's all about the money. It's really not. Like I spend too much time inside. Like sometimes like Avi always tells me like I need to go outside and stop working so much. But yeah, like I think that it's one of those exciting childish times where it makes you feel giddy. And like I'm just like inside all the time because I'm so excited about seeing what's going to happen next. Because I really regretted not living through the internet. I mean, I didn't regret not living through, but like I wasn't really around for the first internet boom. I was like barely.
Tony's
born,
12 years old, guys. For anyone that's wondering what's going on.
But I think it's one of the coolest times of our lives. Like I think in the next couple of years, like a lot of crazy things will happen. I would say just make sure, you always keep cash because the market's definitely running. We're seeing inflation in assets, but I think that there's a lot of opportunity in other things because of that. So with that being said, Pounders, look at where the ball is going and we'll make sure to show you.
That's me. Y'all on level 1, I'm level 3. Pounding on the table for my team. Every night I flex, I'm making big moves. That's a big move. Big money, big moves. That's a big move. I'm making big moves. That's a big move. Big money, big moves. That's a big move. Yeah. They can play, don't talk about it. Master P, I'm about it. This one here for all that try to count me out and they still counting. Honestly, I never doubt it. Say the top is never crowded. Well, I'm trying to climb the mountain till I